Okay? Let's just say that if a company owes $300 million and after liquidation, they can only recover $100 million. They need to make sure they pay everyone in full for the first guy that's standing in the line. And then if there's any money left, they go to the next person. Okay? They don't go, I'll pay you 70% here, 50% here, and 30% here. No, they don't. You have to pay up the most senior creditor first. You have to make them whole. Then you go down to the next person, right? There are other stakeholders that may sit above that. I'll take a guess. Tax office, ATO, right? ATO can I have their claim first, and also employee benefit. Okay, so if you owe staff benefits, their salary, their super, they have a claim ahead of other creditors, right? So but that's a normal corporate. So if you then look at your left-hand side, they are not so, I guess, so indifferent in terms of when you look at a bank. You still have the senior, the subordinated, the hybrid, and then your common equity. Okay. Having said that, if you, I guess in the bank, when you look at senior secure, between senior secure and senior unsecured, there's deposit. Okay, that's the money you keep in your saving account or your term deposit with the bank. We need to single them out because deposit is actually considered as a senior unsecured. Okay. Now, the reason that only rank, the reason why we put them higher than senior unsecured debt is that there is a national deposit insurance scheme provided by the government. And that actually, that's an insurance scheme, means that the bank actually have to pay our government a premium for it, for them to underwrite the risk of a bank going under. But every person only have up to 250,000 per bank. Okay, this amount is the same as the US. In the US, they're also covered every person up to 250,000 per bank. So it means that if you have $1 million that's saved in one bank, if this bank actually go under, the government will only assure you for 250. The other 750 will go into rank the same pari passu as a senior unsecured.
They only cover personal. What about trust, the company?
Question. Thank you, Dr. Zhang. You probably haven't heard me talking doing the same presentation before, so that's gonna be the trivia question. So hey, here you go. You let the cat out of the bag. So here's the trivia question. Anybody knows what about company or non-individual entity? Are they protected under insurance protection scheme? Sorry, deposit insurance scheme? No. The answer is yes. Companies also being protected. Our company will also consider as a legal entity.
So one company can have multiple companies, and then the different every company will be. So that will be a lot.
Your accountant must love you. I'll put 250 every company. Imagine all the tax return, the fees that you pay to ASIC and yes, in a way, you can do that. Or you can do 250, every different bank, right? So, but yes, company are also considered as a legal entity. Okay, so the reason why we want to expand this is because once you start looking at the bonds that issued by the bank, then as an investor, you need to consider, okay, am I buying their senior bonds, or am I buying their subordinated, or am I buying their hybrid, or because this is part of the Basel III framework that there is specific capital reserve ratio that the bank must adhere to for the different tier of the capital. Okay, so we'll get down to that. That's probably a bit technical, but we'll get to that later. That in terms of how much they need to keep as the common tier 1, the additional tier 1, and the tier 2. Okay. Right. So let's use ANZ as an example. So what we've put in front of you is across all the different vintage and the maturity term. We'll look at a senior unsecured, subordinate, and the tier 1 or AT1. So we use government bond as a benchmark, right? So then when we invest in the senior bonds issued by NZ, what they typically do is they will pay investor probably roughly on average about 0.7 to 0.8% per annum in addition to how much you will get from a government bond. So, for example, our 10-year Australian government bond is currently yielding around 3.9, okay, ish. So if you buy a 10-year senior unsecured bond issued by NZ, you probably get paid somewhere around 4.7-ish, 4.6, 4.7. You probably went, why do I bother, right? A saving account will pay me even more, so why do I buy this? Yes, typically for high net worth investors, most of investors that would not be interested in the senior unsecured bonds that issued by banks. But who buys? Banks and insurance company. The bond that issued by NZ will be scooped up by Westpac, NAB, CBA, and all the other peers. Why? Because they are eligible for repo with RBA. So it means that, let's say Westpac, right? They will buy $1 million worth of NZ bond on the issue day. The next day, they will take it to RBA and say, can I borrow 99 million out of it? This is actually the mechanism of money market. Okay, so senior bond, even subordinated, are eligible. RBA is eligible for repurchase agreement from RBA. So okay, so allow me to explain a bit further. What does that mean, repo? Reserve Bank is basically the bank for the banks. Okay, so let's just say that today I'm NZ, right? I've got, I receive new deposit, but I also have people, deposit material, or I have people drawing down their loan, making disbursement. So today, money, after calculating all my cash flow, I have $100 million shortfall. I need to borrow money, okay? Because I've got money going out the door. I'm short of $100 million. Who do I go to? One, I can borrow from my peers. So this is what's called swap rate, bank bill swap rate. Or I can go to the RBA and say, hey, Reserve Bank, I'm NZ, I need to borrow $100 million. Because RBA is the bank for the commercial banks. The RBA is going to say to NZ, say, okay, I'm going to lend you $100 million, but what is your collateral? So that is what repo means. Repo means that you, as a the NZ, when they need to borrow money from the RBA, they need to put something forward as a collateral. Okay, so that is why in the money market, all the banks are swapping other bonds issued by other banks as collateral that when they need to borrow money from RBA. And they will use this collateral also as a way of the capital reserve they held with the Reserve Bank. This is not just Australia. That's how the money market works globally. Okay, so then once we step down in terms of the seniority, right? So then when you look at a subordinated, typically a subordinated bond will probably pay investors about somewhere between 1.6% to 1.8% above the government bond. So there's probably about a 1% pickup from senior bond to subordinated. Okay, and then when for subordinated go to tier one, additional tier one, that's probably right now they're probably yielding somewhere between 2.4 to 2.6% on both the government bond yield across the same tenor. So there's another pickup, say another 0.8 to 1%. Okay, so as you go down the waterfall, the claim hierarchy, the investor will get compensated for the higher coupon that you receive. Okay, so I want to use Macquarie because this is probably the most recently issued a tier 2 bond where it was issued on the 20th of August, and they raised $900 million out of it. So this is a floating rate. So let's I think put some of the concept that we discussed over the last few slides. What they do is they pay a 1.85% on top of 3 months BSW. So 3 months at BSW at the time of issuance was about 4.369%. So for this quarter, Macquarie's tier 2 bond will pay investors 6.2%. Okay, so so this is what we were talking about earlier, right? As an investor, for high net worth investors, people start to actually look at it. Okay, if I'm getting 6.2 floating, with daily liquidity, I'll probably start thinking about it.